Are you seeing the slide that I'm actually showing? I had a few slides that I was going to use. Let me see if I can find them again here. Apologies. Doesn't seem to be working. All I can see is a black screen. Says my screen sharing is paused.
What if you stop, then start again?
It's the same thing. I'm still getting the paused. Well, I can continue without them.
Can you send the presentation to Agile, to Alan? He can
I did,
share it for you.
yeah. I did about, I don't know, half hour, an hour ago.
Okay, please continue as Elaine gets it, and we will proceed from there. Just continue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a slide that actually showed my various roles, and it was mainly just to make the point that my background is perhaps a bit different than many of the other speakers, as it's less technical. But the theme of this summit is a resilient internet ecosystem for an innovative digital Africa. And so I'd like to focus on some key takeaways, possible guideposts from my experience in helping to build a robust global internet ecosystem, as I believe they're still very relevant today. As some of you may know, my first encounter with the Internet Society was to deliver INET 98, which was to be held in Geneva, Switzerland. The Internet Society was running into some management difficulties, and I was brought in to help by the local Swiss organizers. In the end, it was one of the most successful INETs that had ever been held financially, and I believe programmatically as well. At the same time, there was a small group of ISOC board members who felt passionately that ISOC needed a presence outside of the US. So I was offered the position of director for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, located in Geneva. So while not yet really local to those regions, it certainly was better than just being present in the US. And that was nearly 30 years ago. And so I officially joined the Internet Society in September 1998 and immediately began trying to understand how I could help, how ISOC could help. One of my very first trips was to visit the ISOC chapter in Nigeria for events held in Abuja and Port Harcourt. So it's quite fitting that today is the Nigerian Independence Day as well. And congratulations to all of you. That visit was organized by the Nigerian chapter president, Giandomenico Massari, and I was able to spend time with him, other chapter members, and even Mike Jensen. Trip was very informative, very, very impressive, especially when you can see the passion and dedication and just feel the possibilities. That was the first of many such visits to Africa. I was trying to do all I could within ISOC's very limited means at the time to bring Africa and Africans closer to ISOC and further into the internet ecosystem in admittedly a small way, but you do have to start somewhere. I have a slide in my presentation that I was hoping to show you because it's a picture of a statue that I was given by the African ISOC chapters years later. And it's a beautiful glass with the continent of Africa and all the ISOC chapters shown on it. And it was Mohamed Diop, Pierre, Dawid, a whole bunch of individuals from across the ecosystem in Africa that actually was recognizing the time that I'd spent in Africa. And again, especially in the first few years when it was quite difficult because of the financial means, but was very, very focused on driving broader engagement. So a few years later, I became the Internet Society president and CEO. as Nee said, that was from 2001 to early 2014. And ISOC had always struggled financially, and it wasn't getting any easier to raise funds. Donor fatigue is pretty universal in our space here. So it was time to think out of the box. Enter an opportunity to bid for the .org TLD. So I led ISOC's bid for the .org TLD, and in 2002 it was awarded to ISOC with the Public Interest Registry, or PIR, founded in 2002. There are some important lessons to be learned from all of that. As you might imagine, bidding to run a TLD, even .org, was initially not well supported, and that was putting it quite mildly. Some ISOC board members were very much against it, and the IETF as a community had very strong concerns and very vocal views about it. I believed I understood their concerns and also that I could address them. And this is where some of the key takeaways come from. So the concerns were, in the first instance, that the domain space at that time was akin to the US Wild West, full of domain name squatters, likened to land barons, and it was seen by many, particularly in the IETF community, as overly commercial and captured by commercial interests. So at the time, there were several concerning trends developing within ICANN's community of registrars and registries, and I argued that the best way to help ensure a responsible environment for users was to be an integral part of the community and not simply comment from outside the process. This was the main reason for bidding for .org, though of course the additional revenue stream was also a plus. At that time, org registrations were falling quite precipitously. That's another slide that's in the presentation there as well. And so we did a worst case budget planning exercise, which estimated that the surplus revenues available to ISOC could indeed be quite low. So
Madam
again,
Lynn, sorry
yes.
for interrupting. We've got your presentation. Just tell me which page you're on. We put display it.
Maybe you can just walk through them quickly so
Okay.
that they can. And then we would be on slide 5.
Slide 5.
Yeah, if you can go to I think it's the 3rd slide. I really do want to, it's my most treasured gift. That one right there, treasured gift. It's behind me, you can't, but it just meant so much. And I love.
Please proceed, and then you'll be telling us next, and then we will continue.
Right, so you can go to the next slide, slide 4. That's the one that showed the declining .org revenues. And then if you go to slide 5, the next slide, that just an indication that we really weren't quite certain what we were going to get from the .org in terms of additional funding for our mission. But as I said, ISOC's bid for .org actually focused on new products that were meant to do away with some of the bad practices and or minimize the potential harm to individual users. So to create those new products, I enlisted the help of some of the most demanding technical experts. And I mean this in the most complimentary way. We wanted technical experts and we wanted people who were deep and critical thinkers. Randy Bush very kindly agreed to sit on the committee along with other individuals from the IETF, and they contributed to a set of products that we intended to offer if we won the bid. The second concern was that ISOC and IETF would not be able to comment on technology or policy or domain name issues, as we would be seen as biased or perhaps tainted. So I persuaded the IAB to set up a review process where any of our policy positions impacting on the domain space would be brought to the IAB for review before being adopted for ISOC. This was somewhat informal and on an as-needed basis, and quite early on was deemed not necessary, but it was there if needed, and it did address their concern. As a participating member of the IAB, I had a direct line, which obviously helped. So again, participating and showing up are key, to echo some of Nee's comments from earlier this morning. And when your focus is user-centric and not registry or registrars, it is not all that hard to advocate for what is right. Our third concern was that ISOC was the institutional home for the IETF, and we provide their legal and much of their financial support. They made it very clear that they did not want any .org money. My response was that using any .org funds for ISOC's core business would free up its traditional revenue streams to support the IETF. And I showed that their financial needs could be met with our traditional revenue streams. Over time, the IETF's aversion to these revenues disappeared. And I believe this was because, as ISOC, we showed that we still held to our values and principles. Between 2002 and 2013, the Internet Society grew from roughly about $2 million net, the conference revenues. Those revenues simply went to pay for the expenses of holding the conference, to just under $40 million. And most of that was due to org revenues. Finally, we're able to start investing in key areas, in capacity building projects, such as IXPs, network operator groups, support, peering forums, etc. And we began investing more heavily in chapters and increasing local presence through regional bureaus and staff. You can go back to the previous slide. Thank you. And actually, if I can drive them myself, I can do that too. So we began investing through regional bureaus and staff. And ISOC's first regional bureau was in Africa, in Addis Ababa, leadership of Dawit Bekele. So this slide here shows some of the key takeaways, which I hope were illustrated by my short kind of review of some of the key points here over those few years. So stay true to your values, your principles, your mission or purpose. They really do need to be your North Star. Consciously develop processes or structures that reinforce the commitment to your values or principles. And as a sub-bullet, I had avoid creating new structures if possible. Make collaboration, cooperation, and sharing core to your efforts. Find your North Star or stars. In my early days with ISOC, my North Stars were a number of early RFCs. I'm sure Steve Crocker would be happy to hear that. And then, of course, Vint, John Postel, John Clenson, Brian Carpenter, etc. I could name many, many more, but I'm sure you get the idea. Engage broadly and seek out dissenting views. You will ultimately have a more robust and supported solution. No surprise to this group that open multi-stakeholder processes are critical to building trust. And one needs to be willing to change, to pivot when faced with new information or persuasive arguments. So now I'd like to talk for a few minutes about the IGF as it plays a central role in the internet ecosystem. Shortly after leaving ISOC in 2014, I joined the Internet Governance Forum's Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, or IGF MAG, as a member from the technical community, and then served as chair of the IGF MAG for 4 years from 2016 through 2019. I was the first individual not from a government to chair the IGF MAG and the first woman. I share this because to me it illustrates how much the technical community is valued and respected in the IGF ecosystem, and how important it is for us to participate across all the IGF activities, the annual event, of course, but also very much as part of the regional and local intersessional activities that make up the IGF ecosystem, the NRIs, the Best Practice Forum, policy networks, dynamic coalitions, etc. Now, more than ever, we need to support such opportunities to come together in a multi-stakeholder fashion and share, debate, and listen. If we are to have the internet and really the world we have all aspired to for so long. The IGF is incredibly important, and this is a critical period given the discussions within the UN regarding renewing and hopefully strengthening the IGF's mandate. The pressure for a more multilateral approach within the UN is significant. And forgive me for being quite frank, but I honestly do not see how we as individuals or sovereign nations, or frankly the world, could possibly be better off with more multilateralism and less multi-stakeholder efforts. And this need for collaboration, for cooperation, for sharing applies to our internet organizations and communities as well. In the earliest days of WSIS, the World Summit and the Information Society, the so-called ISTAR organizations would get together regularly to share reports and views, to collaborate, The purpose was to ensure that each organization was aware of concerns or activities that the other organizations had. We didn't get together to be coordinated, but rather to support the other organizations, to echo or amplify key messages, especially if they touched on another organization's business space. This was important and required some fairly nuanced management on the part of all the organizations. But this collaboration was central to maintaining a cohesive, robust internet ecosystem during a period of intense pressure on that ecosystem. Africa needs to be a central player in all these discussions, in the ISTAR discussions, as well as in the discussions in the broader global governance sphere. Now I'd like to turn to a different thread within this theme of this summit. So next slide, unless I can change myself. Thank you. I'd like to focus on robustness and resilience. And this is very topical given today's geopolitical pressures. Robustness and resilience are not just important for technical infrastructure, as it very much applies to commercial and social infrastructures as well. There was a very sobering article in Foreign Affairs recently, which was titled "The Weaponized World Economy," which stated that, and I quote, "After the Cold War ended, businesses built an interdependent global economy on top of largely US-centered infrastructure. The United States technical platforms, the internet, e-commerce, and later social media wove the world's communication systems together. Each of these systems could be seen as interconnected complexes of related technologies and services, so that buying into the open internet increasingly meant buying into US platforms and e-commerce systems too," end quote. There were some benefits to this approach, and it clearly assumed that shared commercial interests and their interdependencies would maintain some level of peaceful cooperation. But we are now seeing some of the downsides in that approach. As the article posits, the world is clearly moving away from common commercial interests and more to offensive and defensive positions. Many countries are or will be caught between emerging and probably shifting alliances of the big 3 or 4, US, China, Russia, and India. The Foreign Affairs article continued, and again I quote, "At a time when geopolitics seemed the stuff of antiquated Cold War thrillers, few worried about becoming dependent on economic infrastructure provided by other countries," end quote. But things have unfortunately changed, and it's more important than ever that countries pay attention to their level of robustness and resilience for critical infrastructure, certainly, but equally for commercial and social implications. All this makes it imperative that Africa continue to strengthen its local infrastructure, technical, commercial, and social. Later on today, APC and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office of the UK government and UNESCO are holding a summit on how to scale alternative connectivity models, focusing on community-centered connectivity initiatives. Time and again, Africa has led on key developments, many of them community-based, whether it's IXPs, peering forums, mobile payments platforms, to name only a few. And this is probably also a good time to recognize that ISOC's very first chapter was the Morocco chapter in 1994. I saw Aziz there in the room. And if I recall correctly, Najat Roshdi was, not sure if she was with the government or the regulator, but she also had a leadership role at the time. So it's daunting to think about the challenges that Africa and the world are facing. Africa's size, both geographic and population, is immense, and that adds to the challenges. Again, I thought I might share an experience from ISOC that might be helpful in setting a future path. If you could move to the next slide, and that is the last one. The staff at ISOC ran a scenario planning exercise on future internet scenarios. This was from 2009, but what's key here is the process. Scenarios don't set out one concrete future or one path, but they can provide pointers to activities that one should concentrate on to maximize the possibility of the most desired outcomes coming to fruition. This chart is from that exercise, and it tries to distill key aspects of 4 different scenarios as envisioned. They were called the common pool scenario, which was preferred and is most like the world we're living in today and have been trying to evolve. The second one is boutique network scenario. Third, moats and drawbridges. And the fourth was a porous garden scenario. This document is still on the ISOC site, and the URL is in the slide. Again, it's from 2009, but it was surprised how much of this is still pertinent today. And again, the real benefit is in this sort of process, where you take the time, imagine possible futures, look at what some of the triggers and indicators of that are, and then prepare plans based on one's assumption of how likely those individual points are apt to come. So bridging the internet digital divide is a huge and hugely important task. It won't be easy, as the challenges only seem to be growing geopolitically, as well as with emerging technologies like AI and quantum computing. It will require very significant collaboration across many organizations and the broad engagement of pioneers and the next gen. Thankfully, Africa has been at the forefront of many key developments, and I'm sure you will continue to be. I know the internet community will be with you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. And if I can answer any questions offline, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today.
There's somewhere to press up there. Elaine has a, thank you, Madam Lynn. Elaine has something to tell you.
Not just to thank her and tell that when we wrote to her and expressed the need for her to give this opening speech, she promptly accepted. And I have to confess that the first topic we gave to her, he said, no, this is what you need. And you can see that she knew the challenges where we are, and I'm happy that, and I hope people really understood why he started from the restoration, because I think he felt like we are in a restoration mode at the time. So thank you very much, Lynn, and I hope you mentioned the challenges. We will need you. So I will keep coming. I will keep, we will keep seeking your advices, and thank you very much once again.
There is also one more comment from Prof.
No, I just want to, on behalf of the community, express our sincere thanks for all the support you have given us right from the very beginning. And you were there when we were building all these institutions, and you are still here with us while we try to restore. So we thank you very much, and we appreciate the message that you've given us. Thank you.
Could we give Madam Lynn a round of applause? Thank you for your input.